October 2018, in the dead of night, a minivan drives along the California coast on the famous Route 101. When it pulls over to a cliff's edge, the van's passengers get out. But they don't take photos or enjoy the view. Nope. What they seek sits on the side of the jagged mountain. With their backpacks and ropes secured, they rappel over the edge. Minutes later, they climb back up, now with full backpacks, along with even more bags filled to the brim. After they drive off, all that remains is a small trail of dirt. They are now in possession of a teeny, cliff-dwelling plant known as the bluff lettuce, which is worth $600,000.
Welcome to Heist Club, where we've got a new heist story coming at you each week. We're here to uncover the details behind some of the most audacious and ridiculous robberies of all time. How they pulled it off, how they got caught, and the mysteries that remain. Bank heists, art heists, diamond heists, and other capers you won't believe. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Todd.
Welcome to the club.
Happy Earth Day, Jesse.
Woo! We're recording outside. Just kidding. But we wish we were outside because it's Earth Day. That's what you do on Earth Day, right? You go outside, you touch grass, eat some bark off a tree.
That's the only day. It's the only day you touch grass. Every other day, inside. That's what my parents taught me.
Yeah, one day a year you'll see me outside walking my dog. My dog gets one walk a year.
Oh, God. I might have to call the ASPCA about you, Jesse. I'm worried about your dog now.
And you should. No. I'm just kidding. We're walking all the time.
Yeah, well, this is the way we celebrate Earth Day, actually. We do a podcast episode about plants of all things. There are other ways to celebrate, of course. Go clean up litter around your home and donate to good causes and remind yourself that recycling is good and composting is good and be really annoying to your neighbors by telling them to do the same things, right? That's what you do.
Yeah. Watch the Lorax. Yeah, etc.
Read the Lorax, watch the Lorax, and then read it again so you can compare the two,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the book is way better than the movie.
Adapting that story. Yeah.
Yeah,
watch the Lorax. That's a good idea. Actually, there should be I think if there's other kids, family-friendly movies that are pro-environment. Of course, there's probably 100, and I can't think of them right now.
Oh, yeah. I feel like so many kids' movies. These days, they got to do that.
Yeah. We have a message.
WALL-E,
Watch WALL-E. Watch WALL-E.
WALL-E.
WALL-E is certainly pro-Earth. If there's any, I don't know if there's any more pro-Earth movie there is that predicted our future and where we are today.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not living on these spaceships, drinking our Slurpees and.
I feel like it sometimes.
I know. Just feel like we're not actually off of Earth yet. We're just
not yet
heading in that direction. It sure seems.
Yeah.
Eva. Well, on Heist Club, we have shown people that will steal just about anything for a quick buck. Maple syrup, rare books, a pair of red slippers. And today, in honor of Earth Day, we mix thievery with environmental crime. What a fun mix. One of my favorite cocktails.
Yeah, plant crimes. It's going to get crazy. We're going to get into it. But we also have a special guest later, Jared Margulis, the author of the book Cactus Hunters, coming later in the show. But first, plant crimes.
So, welcome to the world of house plant mania.
Woo! Why do I want to
Come on in, I'm opening the doors.
The Pee Wee Herman alarm. Ah!
Yeah. People have always had a fascination with plants. Maybe not Pee Wee Herman, but other people, whether it be the tulip craze in the Netherlands or fern fever in Victorian Britain. People love having a bit of nature in their home. Our producer, Carolyn, who we've mentioned many times, has 44 plants. Pause. She's counting her plants.
50! You made it to 50.
She's hit 50.
Congratulations.
Quite impressive. I think I probably have 15. Not bad. 10? Never thought about counting them. I don't know. Jesse, how many houseplants do you have? It's become a houseplant.
Back to you. Let's not talk about it.
Do you have 0?
Maybe.
Is it because your dog would eat them? Do you have a reason?
Because I'm not a good plant dad.
Oh. Have you tried before?
Yes, a little bit.
And they always die.
They always die, yeah.
Okay, 0. So Jesse loses. Great. That was an easy competition.
Yeah.
Carolyn wins. I'm in the middle. Yeah. And then there's Jesse. We kind of have it's a real spectrum of houseplant ownership going on here.
Maybe by the end of this episode, I will be inspired
Okay.
to go steal.
To go steal one.
bunch of
Exactly. The
plants.
only way you'll
Yeah.
have one is if you steal it from a garden.
Yeah, exactly.
So naturally, in the modern era, where you can get almost anything with a click of a button, nurseries pop up all over the world to fill the demand. The late 2010s see its biggest spike in nurseries in East Asia. And these East Asian nurseries, and more around the world, we should say, raise hundreds of different types of plant species and ship them to all corners of the globe. There are people from all over the world who own multiple nurseries in different countries to maximize their client pool. But some of these nurseries have a dirty secret, and it's not just dirt. It's some kind of other dirty secret. Their inventory was not grown in-house instead and been snatched right out of its habitat. So what makes stealing a plant such a big deal? Well, I'll tell you. Some plants, while they may not be monetarily on the same level as a Rembrandt or a Picasso or a crazy diamond, are just as or even more rare. And just like a priceless painting, you can't get a new one overnight. For example, the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, of which my family are members, and we will be going to very soon for the cherry blossoms. But Brooklyn Botanical Garden lost one-of-a-kind bonsais, rare orchids, and the world's smallest water lily in a single theft. And I did not even know that before this. It's funny, I read about other plant crimes around the world, including other botanic gardens, but not the one in my own backyard. Just a 10-minute drive, 20-minute subway ride. I'll stop telling you ways to get there. 45-minute walk. All of the above. So Brooklyn Botanic Garden heist, the plant's total cost was $2,000, but the emotional weight of the theft made them feel like they lost millions. I'm sure. They're like their babies. And in 2022, a thief hacked up the San Diego Botanic Garden's ultra-rare and slow-growing Philodendron spiritus sancti. I didn't know about this one. And a plant of that size will go for over $10,000, real coin. On top of the emotional damage, the financial damage really does add up. The illegal plant trade causes up to $1 trillion in economic damage per year. It's a crazy, crazy amount. But on top of stealing from botanical gardens, thieves also go out into nature and rip plants straight from the ground, which might not be a surprise to people who've listened to the podcast Bad Seeds, which Jesse worked on, which School of Humans, who does this podcast, also produced, which is a killer podcast. Listen to that series. And also, I guess if you haven't listened to that, maybe you've seen Adaptation or read the book Orchid Thief. Jesse, have you seen Adaptation?
Adaptation is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It really is. I really need to. I was thinking about it while we were researching this episode, and I was like, I've not seen it in so long. I need to watch it again. I feel like I quote Chris Cooper way too often for a movie I've not seen in at least 10 years.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for all that meta stuff, so I really love it.
It's such a good performance from Nicolas Cage, too. It really is just
I know. He said it was like the hardest thing he's ever had to do because he actually had to like really like not be Nicolas Cage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dour Nicolas Cage. Well, half of Nicolas Cage is dour in the movie. Half of him is
true. Yeah.
It's not. So if you somehow not seen it, please. I mean, yes, it's about plant crime, and that's one reason also. And, you know, I've actually never read the Susan Orlean book, which I've heard is
either.
Astounding. And it's such a fun performance from Meryl Streep. But go watch the movie. So these are the straight from the ground thieves, so-called cactus hunters in Mexico and the southwestern United States pluck entire fields of small cacti clean, which can take half a decade to get to that size. Isn't that just so sad? I find some of this so sad. Like it's just so insensitive to, I don't know, you know, the earth, but also people who just enjoy seeing these deserts full of these plants. Sorry, I got sad for a second.
Yeah. I mean, people will do anything for money.
Yeah. It feels, you know, like, I mean, stealing a Rembrandt is also insensitive, right? Because it's like, oh, now no one can see it again. And the people depriving people of that. Stealing a diamond, I find a little less sad, although I do know there are certain countries which are, you know, mining them, and there's certain aspects of it which are very sad about that too. So, but I find people just being so willy-nilly or insensitive to nature, just so mean, just for money, you know, which I guess is half of, I don't know, that's just capitalism too in so many things, you know, it's like, you know.
Yeah. It's like taking candy from a baby. It's really easy to steal cacti, but it's also very depressing.
Yeah. It's like taking candy from Mother Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so these cactus hunters sometimes wipe out entire species in one go, especially when like a new one is discovered. But the most trafficked plant is the succulent. Yes, those cute little plants you find right before the checkout aisle at Home Depot are victims of a highly lucrative and destructive trade. And starting in 2018 on the coast of California, poachers eye a small cliff-dwelling succulent known as the Dudleya farinosa. Nicknamed bluff lettuce, Dudleya farinosa are only native to the California coast. That's so much of it, too, is like they're so rare and they're only found in certain places. And then, whoosh, they're just taken.
And I will say that bluff lettuce is my favorite jam band.
Bluff lettuce is a good name. I mean, if you told me that was a real jam band, I would believe you.
Oh, I would believe you 100%.
I would totally believe you.
The plant Red Rocks is going to be crazy.
Oh, bluff lettuce. I got my tie-dye T-shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, we have pictures of bluff lettuce on a bluff, and they're actually quite beautiful succulents. You know, they're not just a simple little flower. You know, they're definitely like, you know, there's definitely multiple elements to them, and they're kind of longer than a lot of succulents too.
Yeah,
and what a beautiful place to live! Like to be on the coast of California, they have like prime real estate there. Okay, I'm getting jealous of the bluff lettuce, not the band. The succulents.
Yeah. Wow, the bluff lettuce. They have this ocean view, and
I know.
Wow, they're just chilling on the beach all day.
It's so pretty.
Get a job, you succulents.
They are often called live-forevers, a nickname given by early English explorers who were shocked that they managed to survive a months-long voyage on a ship. Jesse, I think you could keep bluff lettuce alive. I think bluff lettuce, I don't want you to steal them from a coast. Something like bluff lettuce, you could keep alive. That could be, get a succulent, Jesse. Come on.
I would like to think that I could keep something alive called a live forever.
Yeah. The Dudleya's survival is a credit to their ability to hold on to water for lengthy periods of time, making them a critical food source for animals in drought-ridden California. Look, they serve a purpose, too. Not only are they pretty on that bluff, but these animals need them. Yeah, and their root systems are also crucial to preventing soil erosion on the bluff. So, Soul Erosion, my favorite pop band from the 90s. But
Soul Erosion.
Soul Erosion.
Sounds like a new metal band.
Everything sounds like new metal to you.
No, the other one that said jam band.
Oh, you're right. Okay, sorry. This is Soul Erosion is definitely not soil. So I'm saying soul. Soil Erosion is definitely not a jam band. No. In the 21st century, not the 20th century, in the 21st century, wildfires and residential developments threaten their existence. This is the Dudleya. Then 2018 rolls around and their situation only gets worse. Poachers pluck them by the thousands, completely clearing cliffsides. Most of the time, poachers fly in from China and South Korea, fill hotel rooms with the succulents, and ship them out. That feels like that should not be legal. Then the Dudleya go to nurseries and greenhouses in Korea, where they are given expert care for a few years before being sold off for exorbitant prices. The small ones are worth $100 each. The mature plants can go upwards of $3,000, and they get sold all over the world, even back to buyers in the U.S., whether those people know it or not. U.S. officials notice the trend when they start confiscating illegally harvested Dudleya by the thousands, including from an LAX bathroom. And we have a picture here from May 2018, which is not our case, but that is definitely thousands. That is so many. Like you're along the side of the road, and that's like more than a car size. That's more than 1,000, I feel like. That's thousands for sure, I would say.
Yeah,
that's
a lot.
They're just like strewn across the pavement along the side of the road, too.
Right. They're not being very inconspicuous.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing they had them in the boxes and the people who caught them made them take them out. I don't know. I don't know what happened here, but it's way too many and it's way too wrong. That's what I'd say. One group of smugglers get busted because of the soil spilling from boxes marked for Asia. So they're not like shy about where they're for either. Another pair gets ratted out by an exasperated customer at the post office just trying to mail out a Christmas package. What a Christmas gift. Absolutely baffled that the couple in front of her are mailing 60 packages, she asked what it was. The man said, "Shh, something very valuable."
Okay.
Well done, dude. When she asked where they got them, he pointed to the ocean. This dude is out of his gourd.
Maybe. I'm from the ocean.
Yeah. California Wish and Wildlife officers also raid a cabin where they find upwards of 1,000 succulents scattered along the floor. So lots of people are doing this, and there's just thousands left and right. So it seems like the state of California is really on top of the issue, sure. Why are we talking about it here? Well, Fish and Wildlife officers believe they're only catching a small minority of perpetrators. I believe it. In 2018, there were only 400 game wardens in the state of California, which is the lowest in the country. How is that possible? What a mess. And they were more focused on abalone poaching at the time, so not even focused on plants like this. Being so spread thin, they mostly rely on the public for catching plant poachers. So you need someone who's out of their mind and mailing them, and you have a postal worker who's like, this doesn't seem right. I'm going to call the game wardens. Yeah. But this is an urgent matter. Ecologists worry these poachers pose a real danger to the wild population of Dudleya. Some Dudleya species are so rare that one poacher could wipe that entire species out of existence. 10 Dudleya species are already on the endangered species list. Also, not so fun fact, 39% of plant species are at risk of extinction, more than animal species at risk. So people might think about animal species a lot more, but they should be thinking about plants. And hopefully, thanks to this episode and the Bad Seeds podcast and their rewatch of adaptation, more people will be thinking about it.
That's right, Todd.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, this episode alone is going to raise plant awareness.
That's what we're here for.
There is one poacher that puts the rest to shame, though. Byung-Soo Kim, a Korean national in his mid-40s. He graduated from university with a degree in agriculture, married and had 2 daughters, and began his career as a farmer. He pivots to horticulture and opens a nursery for houseplants. In 2009, he buys a nursery in Vista, California, in the San Diego area. He frequently travels between Korea and the U.S., checking on his business and working with American clients. Most of the time, he just ships his U.S. plants over to his nursery in Korea. But in 2013, he runs into some problems with U.S. Customs and Border Protection when they seize 80 plants from one of his shipments. We provide details, but the federal government doesn't give specifics on species. That little run-in with the law is just a teaser for what's to come, because those are rookie numbers for what officials would eventually call the most prolific plant poacher in the world. Shockingly, he's allowed to re-enter the U.S. on multiple occasions, even though to us, his shipments look more than suspicious.
Seriously?
For example, on September 12th, 2018, his nursery ships 5,731 Dudleya succulents, which is 501 pounds. You gotta get the extra pound in there, to South Korea. San Diego is marked as the stated place of origin. 1 month later, on October 11th, Byung-Soo Kim arrives at LAX on a one-way ticket. This time, he brings his buddies, Young and Back and Bong Jung Kim. Young and Back is a cool name.
It is a good name.
I don't have a joke about it, but I do like it.
I
All
like
right.
it too.
They rent a minivan and load it up with all the boys' trip essentials: backpacks, plastic bins, cardboard boxes, handheld radios, and some rope.
I always bring rope on my boys' trips. We always have some rope.
You got to do a little tug of war.
Tug of war. I'm glad we were thinking the same thing. Because like when you get bored, what do? Tug of war.
Let's tug on some rope together to see who wins.
Let's find a cliff and go on opposite sides of the cliff, and then throw the rope across. That's how I play. That's how I tug of war it, baby.
Wow. Okay, so you are a murderer.
I have survived every trip so far.
Yeah, clearly.
My
yeah.
boys, not so much.
Together, they drive up the famous U.S. Route 101 and hit up various coastal state parks, including DeMartin State Beach and Klamath, California, and Del Norte Coast Redwood State Park.
We do have pictures of these because we don't have pictures of people.
I like it. I want to go there. Let's go.
I mean, Del Norte, especially. I mean, that is a beautiful coast, and it's so green. And I mean, it's also a great shot with the way the sun is positioned. But these are, it makes me want to hit the road this summer in honor of Earth Day.
If you haven't already caught the hint, this isn't a weekend road trip. It's a week-long succulent bender. Every time they stop, they pull every single Dudleya out of the ground. No cliffside Dudleya is safe from this trio. Even a succulent sitting on a sheer drop can't evade these guys. They use ropes to rappel down the cliff's edge and grab them. When the minivan can hold no more, they take the poached plants to Byung-Soo Kim's Vista Nursery. But they're not done yet. The next day, they drive to Russian Gulch State Park in Mendocino County and decimated the Dudley population there too.
This is like a crime spree. It's a real crime spree, you know?
Yeah.
Going from town to town and just decimating plant populations. It's really hard to listen to for me. I hate it.
Yeah, and there's another photo of this beautiful, picturesque ocean.
Russian Gulch State Park is gorgeous too, with that bridge in the distance and a little bit of mini rapids or whatever this is. I mean, it's really beautiful. And these guys just see money. They see dollar signs. That's what they see.
Got to make sure every state park suffers, we guess. No one is left out. Satisfied with the haul, Byung-Soo Kim schedules an inspection with a county agriculture official. He tells her that he has 1,397 Dudley plants, which is 259 pounds, and that they are from San Diego. She gives them the certificate.
That was easy. Too easy.
That was easy. Hit that button. How do they manage this? Isn't it suspicious that these guys have a bunch of rare succulents? It is actually legal to grow and purchase Dudleya. The key is that they have to be captive bred.
Well, it's actually legal. So, like, if
Right.
you could grow them yourself and then sell them and purchase them. It's just these are, they're not doing that. They're just stealing them from nature. So
yeah,
that's what makes it illegal, And I wish more people would just legally grow them then to make up for this huge demand. And clearly, it's not as easy as that, and that's why they're being stolen.
Yep, but if something as easy as taking a plant out of the ground, people are going to do it.
Yeah.
There's evil in the world everywhere, Todd.
Yeah, there's not. Right, this is not a museum. This isn't even a botanic garden. Like there's not security cameras in every state park capturing illegal behavior. So, it's kind of easy as long as no one's around.
Why don't they have security in these deserts? They need to set up.
Where are the night cameras?
Yeah, put GoPros on this cacti.
That's right.
So, certificate in hand, he transports the plants to an exporter in Compton where he plans to ship them under the alias Neo.
Neo. This is even like around the time of The Matrix. This is like years later.
I know.
They're
He's
still
just stuck on Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's all cleared, and they leave the plants with the exporter. Then agents from the California Fish and Wildlife Service and execute a search warrant. They find and arrest the trio and confiscate their passports. How did authorities bust them so quick? Find out after the break.
Welcome back, Heist Clubbers. Before we left, Byung-Soo Kim and his two accomplices think they just got away with smuggling a mountainous amount of endangered plants out of California. However, the California Fish and Wildlife Service have other plans from the moment the poachers stepped onto the U.S. soil, which is interesting to me. We'll get into this, but I'm like, can't you get them before? And I know you have to catch them with the product to then charge them, but that means they're letting them take all these plants first. I thought about that while we were preparing this episode. I'm just like, hey, okay, cool. You got your people. Well done. And all these plants are,
yeah.
I mean, they're not all. We'll get into it. Not all of them are. It's not as horrendous an ending as I'm making it out to be.
Right.
We'll see. So it all started when Byung-Soo Kim and his buddies landed in LAX on October 11th. A man with a history of smuggling entering the U.S. on a one-way ticket seems pretty suspicious. And he stocked a rental car full of boxes. Definitely suspicious. The Fish and Wildlife Service tracks the car as it drives from state park to state park, then to Byung-Soo Kim's nursery. Interesting. Yeah, I'd say so. Then he acquires a certificate to ship all the Dudleya. Time to act before they are gone forever. So this is what it's like. They almost let him get away with it, it feels like to me. I don't know. Maybe they're good at their jobs and I don't know what I'm talking about. And
no, you're right. It seems like they sit on it for sure.
Yeah. And we are talking to an expert at the end of this episode. So actually, I want to ask him about this. Let's talk to Jared about this at the end of the episode, Jesse, and get his opinion on if this is the way it should be done or why it's done this way.
That's a good question.
Oh, yeah. Okay. When the game wardens execute the search warrant, it turns out Byung-Soo Kim's haul is actually double what he told the inspector. It's 3,715 Dudleya plants, which is 664 pounds to be exact. The little plants fill up 34 boxes. The value of the haul comes to $602,950 after converting from Korean currency. So quite a haul, like we have referenced. In May 2019, the trio was indicted and charged with conspiracy and with violating a California law against destruction or removal of plant material on public land. However, Bong Jun Kim is the only one remaining in custody. Byung-Soo Kim and Young and Back are MIA. What are they doing here? The second they were released following their arrest, they traveled on foot across the Tijuana-San Isidro border. They obtained false passports and booked flights to South Korea. See ya. They felt so easy. They just let them go.
Yeah.
What do you think was going to happen? You know?
I don't know.
Meanwhile, in the States, Bong Jun Kim pleads guilty in July and serves 4 months in prison, which does not feel like a lot of time. I guess, we know this from, if you listen to the Bad Seeds podcast, unfortunately, these crimes do not always come with a lot of jail time. Sometimes they come with 0 jail time and just some fines, which again, if you really want to stop this, it feels like not a lot of jail time, which just feels like not much of a deterrent to people to commit the crime. And as Bong Jun Kim serves time and eagerly waits for his return to South Korea, Young and Back keeps a low profile, and Byung-Soo Kim is off on another adventure in South Africa. Its west coast shares a few commonalities with Northern California: the weather, the massive sharks, and, you guessed it, the succulents. This time he harvests over 2,000 rare conophytum succulents, some over 100 years old, and even one over 250 years old. I hate Byung-Soo Kim. Can I say that? I really hate what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's like if someone killed like a 150-year-old tortoise, can you imagine the uproar in the world, right? And 250-year-old succulents, it's just people love their houseplants. And I feel like they just don't even know this is going on.
Right.
We also have a picture of these conophytum succulents, and they are adorable. Looks like they have little mouths wearing lipstick. Look at them. They're so cute.
They look like they're all about to start singing a really shrill song.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. They are just, we'll post this picture. They are really, really sweet plants that I guess you can see why they're so popular, right? People want these in their homes. But,
right.
You know what? Just go visit South Africa instead.
Yeah.
Hop in a plane. Bring some rope. Don't bring rope. And go visit these plants in the wild and just admire them and take a picture. Then tell other people to do that.
Right.
Everyone wants a piece of their own. Anyway. In better news, South African authorities catch him as he tries to smuggle the plants out of the country using a false nursery receipt to get an export permit. So he definitely does the same thing wherever he goes. South African prosecutors call it an ecological tragedy and don't let him out of custody, unlike the Americans. Byung-Soo Kim pleads guilty almost immediately. No footing it across the border this time. Now that he is in someone's custody, the American government wants the South Africans to hand him over. The South African government denies the request, not before he finishes his prison sentence there first. They're not letting their hard work go to waste just for the Americans to swoop in at the end and steal some of their glory. I agree with South Africa. The U.S. let him go, right? If they wanted to lock him away, they could have not let him walk across the border, Yeah. South Africa's like, no, we don't trust you. Let us handle it this time, right?
Right. No, I know.
So Byung-Soo Kim spends 1 year in a South African prison, which is good, a year. It's better than 4 months at least. And in October 2020, he is extradited to the U.S., and this time bail isn't an option. The U.S. learned their lesson. In 2021, he pleads guilty to avoid a 5-year prison sentence. He can't really feign ignorance, as his Google searches at the time include the words poaching succulents. Pretty subtle.
Yeah.
Also, has he done this for long enough? I'm surprised, he still needs to Google it?
Yeah.
So, and finally, on January 20th, 2022, a judge sentences him to 2 years in prison and orders him to pay $3,985 in restitution. So 2 years in prison feels like real jail time. But I will say, and you'll also get this when you listen to all of Bad Seeds, I think Byung-Soo was like the exception. If you look at a lot of these stories, he's the one that got real jail time in not just one country, but 2 countries. So I'm glad he got 2 years. It feels like real time. But you will see he is actually the rare case, and probably part of the reason we're telling his story and not one of the other stories today. At his sentencing, he shows a bit of remorse, or at least pretends to. All these things happened because of my lack of knowledge. If I had known a little bit more about the laws in America, I would not have done the stupid wrongdoing. Yeah. Seems more like he wouldn't have done it if he knew he'd get punished, because that's just BS. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
His attorney argues that his intentions were to keep the succulents in his Korean nursery and sell them to put his daughters through college. Okay, just because you have daughters you need to go through college doesn't mean you had to commit a crime. Prosecutors say his motivation was pure, quote, insatiable greed. And we have a pic of the hearing, which is clearly being done over Zoom, because two people in suits, a judge at a desk, and then Byung-soo. I guess, we have a picture of him.
We do have a picture,
found recently in his orange jumpsuit. And does he have long hair? Am I seeing that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got style, Byung-soo.
He's got style.
Yeah. I mean, before he goes to jail.
Yeah. Orange looks good on you.
No one can prove he poached plants the whole time since he first arrived in the U.S. in 2009, but investigators believe that according to his export reports from over 50 trips, he could have taken upwards of 120,000 wild plants. That is a crazy, crazy number. Okay, we're getting you depressed again. And the story does have a happy ending, though. Most of the Dudley are rehabbed and replanted. Yay. In their natural habitat by UC Santa Cruz. Go banana slugs. You know that's there. Did you know that? They're the UC Santa Cruz banana slugs?
Nope.
Nope? You didn't know that? Oh, I think a lot of people wear UC Santa Cruz hats just because they have such a cool mascot. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you know.
I like it. I think it sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar. Okay. It's also where Maya Rudolph went to college and 2/3 of the Lonely Island, not Andy Samberg. I know this because they talk about this on their podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So go banana slugs, and all of this rehabilitation and replanting is actually paid for by Byung-soo Kim's restitution. And we have a picture here of a bunch of college students. You see Santa Cruz students, smiling with their Dudleya.
Yep.
I love these people. I don't like Byung-soo, even with his gray hair.
Right.
But these people I respect and I appreciate, and they're doing Mother Earth's work, if you would.
Yeah.
Actually, the second picture is also them replanting. We literally have them on the cliffside, putting the bluff lettuce back on the bluff, if you would.
Back on the bluff.
Back on the bluff.
Some are also kept in botanical garden collections for seed production. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill in 2021 that fines Dudleya poachers between $5,000 and $500,000 and 6 months in prison, depending on the number of previous offenses. Young and Back, however, is still at large.
You said that with such a flair.
Young and Back is back. And he's older.
Feels like the end of a comic book or something. Like you'd be like, Young and Back is still at large.
I think of him as like this, Young and Back, the plant villain, Wait for the sequel. Yeah.
I mean, he might have long hair too. He might look pretty cool as well.
You're right. To zoom out on everything, it's easy to blame the poaching of Dudleya on everyday consumers. But when a journalist investigated popular nurseries, there weren't any Dudleya in sight. This doesn't make any sense, or does it? You would think the Dudleya's hardiness translates everywhere, but it does not. They are terribly slow growing. We have a picture of some Dudleya, and it's at least 10 years
7
old.
inches.
And it's pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's 10 years old, and it's only about 7-8 inches wide. So, which I don't know, for a succulent to me actually seems pretty decent, but I get how...
10 years, that's pretty crazy, yeah. So, they're really slow growing, plus they are extremely difficult to grow in captivity. They would rather live in a harsh environment, not ones to be pampered.
Unlike Jesse, who loves being pampered.
Unlike me. As mentioned before, they are legal to buy in California, but they would be nursery-grown little babies. Some people don't like to wait years for a plant to mature. This group of impatient hobbyists want a big and beautiful plant, and poachers were more than happy to meet the demand. Lucky for the Dudleya succulent, arrests for Dudleya poaching are now very few and far between since the signing of the 2021 law. But that doesn't mean plant poaching is over. South Africa still struggles with succulent poaching. It's more lucrative than the rhino horn industry.
How crazy is that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about all the attention and press that rhino horns get, as they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but, love rhinos. And obviously, in that case, you're, cutting them off an animal, which is terrible, and killing the animal.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't hear about succulents the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's more lucrative, that's what's shocking to me. It's just like people don't even think about the value involved in plant crime. It's insane.
And people don't think about
I know.
plants, like as we mentioned earlier, for sure.
No.
The latest big target is a species of plants in Tanzania, Stephania erecta, named the potato plant for looking like a potato.
Original nickname.
Yeah. Like the Dudleya, they're extremely slow growing. These little guys probably took 10 years to get to that size and do poorly in captivity. These little guys being the photo of these little potato plants that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, they look like, potatoes, avocado size-ish.
You say potato, I say avocado.
Yeah. So these guys took 10 years, and they're pretty small. They are like a crabapple size or something, if you would.
Crabapple sized. If you see one in your local nursery, it is more likely poached from the wild. What can we do about it? Great question. One way to stop poaching is killing the market yourself. Tissue culture cloning has become so accessible, you can buy a kit on Amazon. Labs have opened up across the U.S. and East Asia, making plants that were once thousands of dollars worth under $100.
Woo! That makes me happy. I mean, I knew this, but I'm so allowed to react in the moment. Sorry.
Yeah. For example, the Philodendron Spiritus Sancti, the one that was stolen in 2022, used to go for over $10,000. Now you can buy it from sellers for $30. That is a difference in price.
Wow, what a difference, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'd read about the Philodendron Spiritus Sancti before. I did not know that it had this much of a change. That is not a follow-up I knew, which is fantastic. Like, it's still an amazing plant, and there's more of them in the world, and they're not being poached the same way. Good news for all.
Right. But of course, there will always be those types of collectors who want to be one step above the rest and demand all their plants be seed-grown. Some shops label which ones are seed-grown with a bit of a price markup. Ecologists have stopped going public with new species discoveries, especially for cactus. But if you don't want to run a lab cloning plants like a mad scientist in the name of saving the ecosystem, California game wardens say the best thing we can do is be vigilant. They say we are their greatest ally when it comes to busting criminals and saving fragile ecosystems like the bluffs in Northern California. So, if you see someone digging around in a state park or an Etsy plant deal that looks too good to be true, something illegal is probably afoot.
I know we mentioned it earlier, but to mention it again, because if you want to learn more about the legal world of plant poaching, check out another School of Humans show, Bad Seeds, which Jesse, my co-host, and Amelia, our producer, both actually worked on. And Jesse's music and sound design is great, by the way, of course, as always. So it really is worth listening to. I mean, to get into it, I tried to make it in, I partnered with a filmmaker and tried to make it as a doc, which unfortunately we have not sold yet, but it's a fantastic podcast. And the stories are depressing, but there is some hope. There are like these seed banks around the world that are keeping certain species alive. It's not all just depressing. I swear. There's actually hope on the horizon, just like we talked about with the Spiritus Sancti and the price going down. Like there are other stories of hope. It's a crazy world, There's like Mexican cartels involved in some of these stories. So the stories are pretty nutso.
Yeah, there you go. Well, plants. Let's see how many flowers we think they get.
Flower diamonds are we giving this one?
Flower diamonds.
I'm going to go 4 flowers, 4 diamonds. I think that's the right range. I mean, if we're looking at Byung-Soo Kim, again, they don't know the exact amount he stole over the years, but it could be as much as 150,000? It's a crazy amount over a long period of time before he finally got caught. We focused on one where they were actually following him and got him. And of course, then he had fled the country and was arrested in South Africa and came back. So he was eventually caught. I don't know if his kids got put through college thanks to what he stole, but he definitely got a decent amount of money off it over the years, and don't know how much of that is still around in South Korea. But there's also a lot of work involved. Again, to me, a lot of this is not that subtle. Seems like it's a system that's easy to rig. It's just like, no, I grew these myself, and here's the form, and everything works out. But I mean, scaling the edges of these cliffs and everything to steal these plants, it is hard to do. Maybe not as hard as breaking into a bank with 3 levels of security at the right time and getting things out, because you're not dealing with the same level of enforcement these game wardens can't be everywhere at all times. And yes, that's probably the reason it's on us to be vigilant ourselves and try to help. But I don't know. They're pretty committed to it. They did it around the world. And they sold a lot of plants over the years.
I think 4 is solid. I'll say 3.5, even though I totally agree with you. And I just don't want to say the same thing as you. Like it does seem easy to, to just go to a desert and take out the plants. But you're right. They're traveling across the world, all over the world. And like, I'm sure it's a hard day's work to do all this stuff. And they have a whole system. So it's not like it seems easier than robbing a bank, but in a lot of ways, it's a lot into it. And they got away with it in a lot of ways. He did a little bit of prison time and made a lot of money. So I think 3.5 or 4 is solid.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes me sad at times, but it is impressive what they do. And unfortunately, they're not the only ones that have done it and are still doing it. So, again, this is our Earth Day episode, and, we're going to take that lesson away from what the game warden said, which is, be an ally as best you can. If you see things, see something, say something.
Yeah, stay aware, everybody. And now we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to do an interview to talk about this crazy thing we just talked about with Jared Margulis. It's going to be pretty cool. The author of Cactus Hunters.
Yeah, excited to talk to Jared. Be right back for that. Okay, hello, Heist Clubbers again. Let's give a warm welcome to Jared Margulis, an expert on plant poaching. We are so happy to have you here, Jared. Thank you for joining the show.
I'm excited to chat about this particular case.
Yeah, it's a crazy one that I had heard of before, but a lot of people haven't, and a lot of our listeners might not have as well. So it was crazy to dig into, I guess. That's a good way to put it. And we're so happy to have you because there's definitely a lot of questions we still have and questions I'm sure our listeners have as well. So I'll start with maybe something a little bit more on the personal side, which is we know you've recently moved to London and have a 10-month-old at home. So perhaps taking care of plants is not your priority at the moment. But, how many, Jesse and I talked about this earlier. Jesse's number is 0, just to put it out there. But how many plants?
How dare you out me already? Wow.
Sorry.
Geez. He didn't have to know that.
Just being honest. So Jared has some context.
Okay, great.
Sorry. It's the truth, Jesse. Maybe, next time we record an episode, the number might go up to 1 or 2, hopefully. We'll see.
You're right. Okay.
We're making you a plant daddy. But Jared, how many plants do you have at home? Are you a house plant enthusiast yourself? Or is your answer also 0?
So technically right now my answer is regrettably 0, but it's not because I'm not a plant obsessive. I mean, I certainly had already kept houseplants for a long time before I worked on this research in my book. But through the course of researching it, you can't do interviews with enthusiastic cactus collectors and not leave an interview with a plant. They always have too many. So when I lived in the UK previously, when I was doing this work, I quickly amassed a collection of like 50 cacti. Because of trade regulations, I couldn't actually bring them back home with me to the US.
That's so amazing. That's fascinating.
So I kind of started over. But right now I have 0 in my little flat in London. I'm actually currently working to legally import several of my favorite ones, but mostly I had to give away almost all of my plants. I probably had about 60 house plants back in Alabama.
Wow.
So they got me. I'm implicated.
Well, you are tied with Jesse at the moment, but it sounds like very quickly you might be way ahead of me.
Yeah.
Even our producer, Carolyn, who's on, who has 50 houseplants and is...
It's good.
Yeah, she's good. She knows what she's doing. Okay, well, I'm also good to hear you're doing it legally. This is if you were to admit to us that you were, to be like, oh, well, this is an interesting person to speak to about this conversation.
I'm considering it research to just see how hard it is actually to do it right.
Yeah, you should write something about it. You really should. I think it'd be a great piece about it.
So, Jared, in the world of illegal wildlife trade, where do plants rank? Are succulent heists rare or way more common than people realize?
I get asked a question by journalists a lot, like how much is this illegal trade in succulents worth? Or is it the second, third, or fourth, or 20th biggest wildlife trade? It's really hard to say with illegal anything involving illegality because the whole point is it's not being regulated. So I'm always conservative in my answers here. But wildlife trade takes place across the tree of life in ways that I think everyday people would be shocked by. There's growing popularity in collecting ants right now, for instance, and rare spiders, but it's, reptiles, it's birds. But it is a lot of different kinds of plants. People obviously are familiar with orchids. The most lucrative illegal wildlife trade in the planet, though, is in plants, but specifically in rosewood timber. But rosewood is a tree, so it is a kind of plant. But far and away, the value of that trade and by volume exceeds any other animal trade. So my sort of cheeky response would be, plant trade is the biggest wildlife trade, but that's definitely because of timber. But yeah, a lot of plants are traded and the volumes are significant and they obviously affect species conservation. Even if we're mostly used to hearing about rhino horn trade and ivory and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's such a good point you make too. Like we've seen numbers like 15 billion or you've seen like numbers thrown out there, but of course they're estimates because it's illegal and you don't know. It can't be tracked properly.
I always am very suspect of like articles that claim like a really clear number value on these kinds of illegal trades.
Yeah, there's probably an editor there who's like, no, we must have a figure. We must blow people's minds with this number. And it's like, oh, if I had to guess.
I mean, I get it. It's a hook, right?
Yeah. I'm not forgiving it, but yes, I do. Yes. But it's good to know. I appreciate that context because again, I think we've read enough to see that some people put a number on and some people don't. And either way, it's kind of astounding. It's just an incredible amount and, frightening, astounding and frightening. Well, turning to the heist that we told today, when you look at Byung-Soo Kim's case, like what stood out to you the most? I guess maybe going into it when you first heard about it, but maybe as you dug into it even more too.
So my relationship to the case is funny because not funny, but I was essentially I was studying the case of Byung-Soo Kim without realizing it because I was sort of tracing my way through that landscape, doing interviews and visiting these sites where he had been poaching plants with his collaborators without knowing about him or the case yet. It sort of would become revealed later that much like the Fish and Wildlife folks were following him, I had been too, kind of all along. So I think two things stand out to me. One is there was a concerted degree of coordination in the scope, and the scope and scale was audacious. The poaching of Dudleya was not new per se, but the volumes that he was working in were really impressive, we could say. But I think the thing that sticks with me the most, and I still think about probably more than I should, is that if you get into the case files, which I had the opportunity to do because I ended up, because of in the capacity that I ended up serving for the attorneys later, he had been doing it for years, quite a number of years. And that was sort of only revealed later. And so while he got busted in this one really big case with a singular volume, the paperwork trail shows that he had been exporting Dudleya from California for years. And so I think the thing that still I find most shocking about the case is that this wasn't a case of really audacious smuggling. It was really good laundering, which is to say he was getting paperwork from the USDA that said, these are cultivated plants, which they obviously weren't. And he was legally then, if he hadn't been lying on the paperwork, he would have been otherwise then legally exporting the plants out of Compton to Korea, where he could then sell them on to people and say, hey, like, here's the paperwork, this is all above board. And so he was getting this paperwork for years. And that's just really shocking on a couple of fronts.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the episode. It's like reminder, there is a legal way to do this. Obviously it's not being grown, or what at the time especially was not being grown in the numbers necessary to satisfy the demand. And that's why he was stealing it the way he was. But like getting away with it seemingly easily for a while, right? For years doing it at a level we don't even know. Like we don't even know how many he was sending.
And so I think, in the end with the particular case that he got busted for, he obviously lost big. He, not only would the court fees have been a lot and he had to forfeit a lot of money, and, his enterprise was destroyed. He also had, he previously had served a prison sentence in South Africa, which I don't think anyone would probably want to do. But then he also served prison time in California, and got really severely beaten up, and had his jaw broken. And, So he paid a price, but prior to that, he still probably made a lot of money. And, how much of that he ultimately would have lost because of all of that, I don't know. But he was probably, making a fair chunk of change for a good long while off these plants.
Yeah, he was talking about wanting to put his kids through college. He definitely did that and more, we can assume. Also, by the way, I did not know about him getting beat up. That's not a detail I'd heard. We're not rooting for that for any person. He did bad things.
Yeah.
That's bad, but like that's those conditions that's terrible to hear. I will
Yeah.
one thing that bothered us in the story of Byung-Soo Kim is that the Fish and Wildlife wardens, they think his visit is suspicious when they're finally kind of like onto him and they track him, or they're, from a distance, but they're tracking him from park to park, but don't stop him and catch him until he's ready to flee the country. It bothered us because it's like, why did they do it this way after the plants had been plucked? I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that, about that? That's the way they go about it?
I appreciate that question because I think there's a lot to kind of chew on with it. So one, I have a sense of why it happened that way, but then we can maybe unpack why, like what that still tells us or can teach us, about our relationships to plants, because they realized this was going to be a big case and they wanted it to be airtight, but they also wanted to get maximum penalties, right? They wanted to bring conspiracy charges, which required demonstration of coordinated efforts between at least 3 parties. They wanted to show the full supply chain, which meant that they had to also let certain amounts of plants go through, right? So that meant that they really needed to sit back and just let it happen to its full extent. Was that good for the plants? Absolutely not. Was it good for the environment? Definitely not. Was it good for them making an airtight case that was, this was one of the most serious penalties ever brought against anyone in the United States for plant poaching.
Yeah.
Maybe the most serious. And they were able to do that because of the way that they allowed it to play out. I think the goal there long term was the hope that by bringing this much attention to the case and the severity of the sentencing, that they were going to stop other people from, doing it. In the future. I think that has to be the justification. I don't think that California Fish and Wildlife officials were enjoying probably the fact that they were having to kind of watch this just happen.
Yeah.
I think the other problem, though, it points to is that the way that the kind of state relates to what the damage was essentially one of property damage, which is that these plants are property of the citizens of California and the state. But the way that they value that property is monetary damage. And so the more plants they allowed him to steal, the more the volume and value of those plants could be valued at in terms of monetary damages. And I found that quite surprising, or maybe I shouldn't have found it surprising, but it was sort of, it struck me as something to really think about, like that they had to have a dollar value in terms of the damage. It couldn't be about just the plants existing in the world. And that still kind of sticks with me as something that's a bit troubling.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Yeah, because we definitely, to us, it felt environmentally, and these plants are beautiful. It just felt more ideal to stop them, even if it meant lesser charges, stop them a little sooner. But I mean, it is true. Part of the reason we told the story is because it's one of the rare cases where someone got real jail time for it. It's a real penalty, and maybe that did, tell others, don't do this yourselves because look what could happen. So maybe in the end they saved more plants. And as we told, they did replant a lot of the Dudleya here. So there was it's not like they all were gone for good. There was at least a slight happy ending. And Jesse, I'm going to ask one more question before I know you're going to jump in. You said that you helped the lawyers in the case. I'm not sure I knew that either. What was that like,
okay.
and what did you do?
It relates to what I just said. It was a bit. Again, as a researcher, it was really strange. And it gave me pause also because it's important to realize that as academics, I thought I was kind of just writing a weird book about, cactus theft, but people do read your work. And in this case, because I had been doing this research and ultimately found that I had been researching kind of the case of Byung-Soo Kim without kind of knowing it, I had sort of inadvertently become a bit of a kind of expert. And so I was approached by the federal prosecuting attorneys to serve as an expert witness, but the capacity that I ultimately served in, and I went back and forth about whether or not to do it, but was basically to tell them what the value of the plants was that he took. So I didn't end up having to go to court, which is great. But I did have to create an estimate. And the reason, in part, they said they wanted to ask me to do it was because they felt like asking people in the commercial trade could be seen as biased in a variety of ways. You know, people might want to amplify the value in the hopes that it draws, you know, there's a lot of ways that it could be complicated. I don't know, you know, how they felt about it. In the end, I valued the plants less than Fish and Wildlife did. But it was also complicated by the fact that the value of these plants dropped pretty precipitously within a few years.
Yeah.
And also, I think their estimates were based on retail values that they found online. But my research was showing that he wouldn't have been selling these like individually, like he wasn't retailing these plants. He was selling them on to people who would retail them. So wholesale prices would be slightly different. Anyways, that's a bit nerdy, but that was when I discovered like the way that they were going to determine his sentencing was based on the value of the plants. And that was quite shocking to me.
It's a complicated chain of like pricing, you know, like at what point do you find what the true value is of something? And that's not just plants, that's anything, right? There's bulk pricing, and then there's retail. And
yeah, I think I did include in my letter to the judge that I did find it striking to think about the fact that that's how the sort of sentencing would go down, was based on the value of the plants as they happen to be like in 2018 or whatever. Like it's quite arbitrary to think about a plant's value based on market demands in a particular time and place.
Yeah. Because they got to pick something. That's what they went at first. But great. That's great. That's amazing to know you were involved. Thank you.
Yeah. So your book, The Cactus Hunters, explores this idea that people who love plants are sometimes the ones putting them at risk. Why do you think that paradox exists?
Yeah, this was the really naive question I kind of set out from in deciding to write this book. And it's why I felt like I wanted to write a book was, you know, why would people who seemingly love these plants the most love them into extinction? And so I think for me, that's why in my book, I get a lot about these questions of desire and like, what does desire mean? And desire about being more than like a way of saying like what we want in the world. And so, you know, I think there's a lot at play in what motivated particular kinds of collectors to go out and, you know, obtain these objects or plants of their desires. And sometimes I think desires can run away with us, and allow people to justify doing things that they might recognize rationally are harmful to the species that they care about, but become so sort of overdetermined and valued in their own minds, in terms of the possessive value of those plants for their personal collections, and what the plants mean to them, that people make interesting choices about how to sort of justify things. We're really, as humans, we're fascinating creatures. And it's why I ended up reading a lot more in psychology and psychoanalysis and writing this book, is because, you know, we do a lot of things that are deeply irrational. And so trying to get a better understanding of that behavior was really important to me in this project. And what I found, though, was that there was still nevertheless a lot of love involved in these stories, right? It's just that, you know, that like love can involve a lot of hurt and damage as well. And that was true in these stories of plants.
Yeah. Why do we hurt the ones we love?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. You can know about this passion and like industry, but if like you find a little way to exploit something, sometimes it's really tempting. Like, oh, I know about this, and I know how to exploit it. And sometimes people will just do that, even though it's their passion and love. That makes sense.
I think also there's just narcissism and egoism involved too, in that people oftentimes, to me in interviews, would justify their actions even though they were illegal because they know the law, they know what they're doing. They say, okay, oh, I know, like I'm not going to steal 100 plants, but I'm going to take some seeds or a few plants because I know that I don't want to damage the ecosystem or the like long-term viability of the species. And by taking these plants, I write about this idea I call the Robin Hood conservationist. By taking these few number of plants, I can then take them back to my home country in, like, let's say Europe, and then propagate them and grow them out and then provide them to others in a way that stops those people from unscrupulously, just destroying the land, the ecosystem, and all of these species. But that's totally unregulated. And who's to say that there aren't 20 other people doing the exact same thing and sort of rationalizing the same kinds of behaviors? And I think a lot of that does actually happen.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So when people hear plant theft, it can sound low stakes, but what are the real environmental consequences when something like Dudleya gets poached at scale?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify my areas of expertise, I'm not a botanist or an ecologist, although I respect that work so much. And so much of my own research, I ended up studying a lot of the ecology and botany and from talking to experts who are in those spaces. I think what stuck with me in this work is how much we don't know in answer to that question. Like, so within the context of Dudleya, undoubtedly they have numerous numbers of pollinators that rely on them or are in relationship with them. With Dudleya in particular, these are cliff-dwelling species that are probably extremely important for erosion control and in keeping the sort of soil on the cliff sides intact and where they are. Mm-hmm. And so what are the knock-on effects of, greater amounts of topsoil erosion, into the coastal areas or on the beaches? I don't know the answer to that. But these are species that are always going to be in relationship with other species, whether those are other plants that they cohabit space with, or butterflies or birds or insects that rely on them. And so for so many of these species that I was studying in my work, there was a lot that ecologists and botanists would tell me we just don't know yet. But there are lots of examples. Like if you look at the example of the saguaro, like probably the most famous cactus, like out in the U.S. Southwest, there are numbers of species whose whole sort of ecological niche is drawn out through the saguaro. There are species of bats that almost predominantly rely on the nectar of the saguaro fruit, for instance. There are animals that largely only inhabit and live in saguaro cacti. So, that's an example that's like a well-studied organism that we understand a lot of these ecological relationships, but there are thousands of others that we just probably don't know nearly as much as we should about.
Yeah. What a microcosm of how we treat our planet overall. Just one little example of not knowing the additional effects of a butterfly flaps its wings type thing, It's like you have no idea what the second effect is and the so on and so forth. And yeah, we do know some examples, but so many things we don't, and unfortunately don't think or talk about enough. Yeah. Well, and I know you're not a botanist and everything, and we know you have zero plants at this time. But if someone listening wants to be a responsible plant owner, what is one simple thing that they should look out for, or to avoid accidentally supporting illegal plant trade? Are there signs of things we should know, whether it's shopping at our local nursery or shopping online, which we know maybe is a little riskier? I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there are a few basic things, because one thing I would never want, I try to make this point a lot when I talk to folks, is I got into cactus collecting in keeping these plants through studying it being done kind of the wrong way. And so there are ways of, I think that the more people in the world who can develop meaningful relationships with plants, the better. And there are ways to do so, I think, that are both sustainable and ethical and responsible. So yeah, I think pointing to a little bit of what you just said, if you're going to buy plants, buy them from respected and reputable nurseries and places that are trustworthy, and don't be afraid to ask them questions about where they get their plants from. They shouldn't be afraid to share that, especially if you tell them why you're concerned. The vast majority of plants you're going to buy from a nursery are going to be cultivated or seed grown, and they should be happy to tell you about that. Yeah, if you start buying plants online on online marketplaces or auction sites like eBay from international dealers, you're quickly getting into murky territory, and I would just encourage people probably not to do that altogether. Mm-hmm. It just gets a lot harder to know what's going on and what information you need to know. So for instance, if you're buying cacti online internationally, you need to be getting permits with those plants. And so you need to be asking very important questions then from the buyers about that process and where their plants are coming from. Within particular kinds of groups of plants, like a lot of cacti, you can start to develop an eye for tells of plants being wild harvested. But in general, I would say the easiest advice to tell people is, one, maybe embrace learning to grow plants from seed. I think it's a much slower kind of journey, but I think it can be a really rewarding one. I've decided that's how I'm going to get back into cacti here in the UK now that I'm here, is just to get some seeds and try. my hand at that. But then, yeah, just getting them from really reputable sources or sharing. Like, you don't have to you can have an amazing houseplant collection and never have bought a plant in your life, with all the ways that you can propagate and get offsets and things like that from others.
I love the seed idea, especially because like I have kids at home, and it's like to see that process. They see it a little bit at school, thankfully, that their school actually does that, but still at the same time do it at home too, and show that it matters to us. And there's, this is the right way to do it.
I have an infant at home, and when she's old enough, I'm so excited to try germinating some cacti with her, or other succulents, or whatever she gets into. And I think about the fact that there are a lot of cacti that we could plant together that won't only outlive me, but could easily also outlive her. And that's it's like a really wild thought to sit with.
Wild and beautiful thought.
Yeah.
Well, good advice for our listeners, and also for, Jesse himself, who's going to be getting some plants soon. I know he will.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for speaking with us, Jared. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or that you wish people knew about this issue? I know that's pretty broad.
It's basically a chance for you to say anything we didn't ask you. If there's anything
Is there anything you wish that we asked?
What did we not ask? What did we do wrong here, Jared?
Name all the questions that we didn't say.
It's a really good question.
It's a question about questions.
I think one thing that just I still think about is just how strange it was that this trade blew up in the way that it did at a moment when people in the US were not even selling Dudleyias commercially because there was no market for it. And it is so instructive about how our desires are really fickle in a certain way. Like, when a plant suddenly becomes extremely trendy, and like social media is just rocket fuel to all of this. But like when a particular, like, I don't know if y'all remember, but like during COVID, like variegated monsteras became massive. Like, so like monstera aeroid plants that had like white patterning and speckles and stuff. And people were literally buying cuttings of a plant for like thousands of dollars on eBay. Right. And like, you can buy those at Home Depot for $15 now. And that's like, of course you can, because like there was a demand and, the market responded. Just these plants take time. And so I think sitting with the temporality of plants is a really interesting exercise in how that does and doesn't align with our kind of like commodified world. But also just like, how is it that in a particular place in the world, like these particular plants at a very specific moment in time can suddenly be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, whereas just across the ocean, knowing you can't sell them for more than $15. And what does that maybe more broadly tell us both about our relationships to plants, but also like the ways that we commodify them, and whether that's really such a good thing?
Absolutely. I love that this story could just make people look at their houseplants in a really different way, a way they never
that is I'm glad you said that, because I think that's the main takeaway that I really hope this work in my research, but just talking about these things can do for people, is all of the plants that like we cohabit with in our homes have life histories and stories, and they come from a place. And I encourage people to spend time learning about what those places are and the histories that got them into your house, because they're usually really fascinating.
They definitely are. Jared, thank you so much for your time. This was fascinating and illuminating. Often guests have a podcast of their own or a social media handle to throw out there. Is there anywhere people should find you? I mean, they should definitely buy The Cactus Hunters if they haven't already read that. If you have anything else you want to throw out there, though, this is your time, Jared, or not, and just respect to you for not.
I always love that at the end of the podcast. Yeah, like follow me on TikTok. No, I don't have that. Thank God. I mean, if you're interested in this stuff, obviously, I'd be delighted if people engage with my book and let me know what you think. You can buy it pretty much anywhere. I'm still working on figuring out what exactly I'm going to write next in terms of my next big book project, but I'll have to stay tuned on that one.
Please, we can't wait to hear more. We'll rush out to get it and tell all of our listeners to get it too. So, Heist Clubbers, you were hearing Jared Margulis, a human environment geographer at the University of Central London and author of The Cactus Hunters, as we've mentioned. So go buy his book, keep learning about this, and happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. See you next week. And tune in next week for a diamond collection worth almost $1 billion.
Heist Club is a production of School of Humans, hosted by me, Todd Weiser.
And me, Jesse Neiswanger. I do all the fancy audio and music editing too.
This episode was researched and produced by Carolyn Talmadge. Our senior producer is Amelia Brock.
Our production manager is Daisy Church. Our executive producers are Virginia Prescott, Brandon Barr, and Elsie Crowley.
Join us again next week for Heist Club, and don't forget to rate and review. Thanks.